Listener discretion is advised. Welcome. This is Her America. I'm your host, Chaida. Hello, everyone. I am going to be doing another episode for my series called Foster Stories. Foster Stories is a way for me to share about my experiences as a kid growing up in the foster care system, as well as sharing issues that is related to the foster care system in America. Today, I'm going to be sharing about my experience in my first foster home. I did an episode sharing my fostered life story on this podcast. And if you want to go through the archives, you can find it. It's called My Foster Life Story. And I share about my time growing up in the foster care system and how that impacted my life. I shared about the different foster parents I have and what they were like. And this one foster parent, my first foster parent, she was an elderly woman who had kids in her home by the time I was in there. She had 3 daughters. One of them was also a foster kid, like myself at the time. And then she had 2 other daughters who were in the home that she adopted when they were at much younger ages. And then this foster mom, she already had adult children living outside of the house, and they already had their own lives. They had their own kids. So she was also a grandmother. She had multiple grandkids and all of them came over from time to time. They came over a lot, actually, when I was at the home. I was 11 years old when I first came into the foster care system. Before that, I was in kinship care. And for those of you who may not know what kinship care is, that's when you stay with a relative instead of a foster family. So a relative agrees to take you in and be your guardian. And the reason why I didn't stay in kinship care any longer, I was living with my maternal aunt. So her and my mom were sisters. And there was just a lot of strife in the family. And when my social worker was involved, it was told to me later at that point that it was not going to be a good fit for me to stay with my maternal aunt and with my uncle. So I was taken out of their home and placed into my first foster home, where I've met this woman who would be my foster mom. And in the episode in my episode of Foster Life Story, I shared her name. I didn't share her real name. I shared her fake name, Joel. That's what I referred to her as. I referred to her as Joel. And so my foster mom, who was a mother to 2 teen girls and a little foster girl. So I was like the fourth girl in the house. And she already had adult children that had their own lives and were out of the home. So this is where we're at. I faced very severe trauma in that home. It wasn't always bad, but there were definitely moments in that house where it really scarred me as a child. One of her older daughters, who was adopted, would constantly pick at me. She would yell at me when I was in the bathroom. I remember a few instances when I was in the bathroom whether it was to shower or to use the bathroom, she would barge in and basically throw me out the restroom. And that made me feel kind of vulnerable and weak. There were times where she would place her hands on me, and she was older than me. She was in high school at the time, and this constant like fighting culture was so prevalent. Looking back, it was so prevalent. Like kids putting hands on each other, fighting each other. I mean, it wouldn't happen with the other girls, but it was more so me and her. And I just felt that my foster mom did not do enough to put a handle on the situation. And then there was one of her granddaughters who came over to visit a lot. She had lots of grandkids. I remember this one particular granddaughter. One of her granddaughters and we were hanging out a lot. And we were of the same age group. I think she was a couple months older than me. So she was like 12 and I was like 11. But we're like only a couple months apart. We're not that, there wasn't a very huge age difference. One of her granddaughters decided that she would take advantage of me sexually, meaning that there were things that she would have me do with her that took place in a sexual nature. So that meant like I would take off some of my clothes or all my clothes. I would I would take photos with her. She would have me do things with her in order to arouse her, to make her feel wanted. And as a child at the time, I didn't learn how this was her way of like manipulating me. I wanted to feel included and be part of the family so bad that I didn't realize that this was a very toxic, very I can't even say the word, manipulative way of her, like almost like her grooming me. But I'm not saying that she was an adult. At the time, she didn't know what she was doing, and she didn't know enough to know that it was bad and what she was having me do was just completely inappropriate. And when my foster mom, Joel, learned about this, I think she handled it privately with her daughter, who was an adult. I think she handled it privately. I don't think the issue was brought up to my caseworker because I think my caseworker would have, my caseworker would probably have had me removed from the home. So I'm not sure, even to this day, I'm not sure if my caseworker at the time knew. Because if she did, I could not imagine if she would just let me stay in this home because I remained in this home for a good 2 years. So from ages 11 to 13, I stayed in this home and was basically around this girl who basically saw the most intimate parts of myself. And I was just, I was vulnerable. And just angry and scared and just traumatized. And it took me a long time in my life to forgive these people, forgive them for hurting me in such a traumatic way, and also being willing to move on. And this is why I share this story because there's so many kids out there who are made to feel vulnerable in the homes that where they're supposed to be protected. And as foster parents, it's it's the foster parent's job to protect, make sure that the child that they're fostering is cared for and protected. And if they cannot do that, then somebody needs to know. A social worker needs to be made aware of, and there needs to be other arrangement, meaning that maybe the foster parents lose their license, or they'll go back for more parenting classes, or there's some sort of disciplinary action that needs to be involved. But yeah, I just think that my foster mom didn't do enough to protect me. And I know I've said that over and over again because it's the truth. I think if the best way she could have handled that situation was ask for my removal from that home. Because there is just no reason after all that, after going through what I went through with her teen daughter beating me up as a small child, where her teen daughter was in high school, and one of her granddaughters taking advantage of me sexually, that definitely warped my mind. It definitely impacted on how I grew up and how I viewed sex and men and women and relationships. If she cared about me enough that deeply, she would have just asked me to be removed from that home, because it just proved, it was from time to time again, it was just proven that it was not a great environment for me, and it was not a healthy environment. Maybe for other kids this didn't happen to them while they were under her care, but this happened to me, and it should matter. And it should matter for every kid that this happens to, because I know there are a lot of kids in the foster care system who are carrying scars because of things that happened to them that traumatize them, and they are not being addressed, and they have to, and I don't want them to have to wait until they're an adult, until they're in a place for their life where they can begin addressing those traumas so they can start the healing process. It took me more than 10 years to heal from these scars. And I don't want that for anybody else. And so that's why I shared this, because I don't want people who grew up in the foster care system thinking that that was normal, because it wasn't. And I don't want them to feel alone in that situation, because they are not alone. There are probably a lot more individuals like myself who grew up in the system, who faced similar traumas, and who are still walking with those scars. And I wanted to be known that they are not alone, and that they are cared for and are loved, even if they don't know it yet, even if they cannot see it. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for allowing me to trauma dump on you, if you want to call it that. I hope that my story helps open your eyes to some of the various issues that go on in the foster care system. I hope that you'll continue to come back and listen to more episodes of foster stories, in hopes that you will want to do something about the system. Thank you so much for listening. And this has been Her America.